What happens when a narcissist realizes they've messed up? Have you ever been in a situation where a narcissist in your life suddenly realizes they've messed up? The moment they become aware that they've crossed a line, hurt someone, or failed in some way, how do they respond? Do they apologize sincerely, admit fault, and make amends? Or do they try to twist the situation, deflect blame, and manipulate their way out of responsibility? If you've been involved with a narcissist, you probably already know the answer. Narcissists don't handle mistakes or failures the way other people do. While most individuals may feel genuine remorse when they hurt someone, narcissists tend to respond differently. They rarely take responsibility for their actions, and if they do, it's often in a way that centers their own emotions, struggles, or self-image. In fact, when a narcissist realizes they've messed up, it's rarely about the hurt they caused others. It's about their own wounded ego. This might sound perplexing, but understanding the psychology behind a narcissist's response to failure or error is essential for anyone who's ever found themselves in a relationship with one. In this video, we'll explore the various ways a narcissist reacts when they realize they've messed up. We'll look at their inner emotional landscape, their coping mechanisms, and the steps they take, or don't take, to either repair or manipulate the situation. Most importantly, we'll dive into the question of whether a narcissist can truly change or grow after acknowledging their mistakes, and what you should do if you find yourself in this challenging dynamic. So if you've ever been left wondering what goes through a narcissist's mind when they finally realize they've messed up, stick with me. This deep dive into narcissism might just help you understand why they act the way they do, and how to better navigate these often destructive dynamics. Before we dive deeper into this complex subject, I want to invite you to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. It's not every day that we explore the inner workings of the narcissist's mind and how they handle moments of realization, regret, or even failure. This is a conversation that can change the way you view relationships, especially if you've ever found yourself emotionally tied to someone with narcissistic traits. And trust me, by the end of this discussion, you'll have a deeper understanding of why narcissists behave the way they do when they know they've messed up, and what that means for you. When a narcissist realizes they've messed up, it's a unique and often unsettling experience. For most people, acknowledging mistakes is a part of personal growth and responsibility. When someone recognizes they've hurt someone else, they usually feel remorse, and this can prompt an apology or attempt to make amends. For a narcissist, however, this kind of humility and self-reflection is often alien to them. Narcissism is rooted in a fragile self-esteem, an inflated sense of self-importance, and a deep need for validation. To maintain their sense of superiority, narcissists often go to great lengths to avoid anything that might challenge their carefully curated image. This includes taking responsibility for mistakes or failures. So what happens when they're confronted with the reality that they've messed up? Let's break down the possible responses. The first reaction: denial and defensiveness. When a narcissist first realizes they'd messed up, the most common initial reaction is denial. Narcissists often live in a world where they are the center of attention, always right, and deserving of admiration. When their actions contradict this self-image, when they make a mistake, hurt someone, or fall short of their usual perfection, their first instinct is to reject the idea that they could ever be in the wrong. In this phase, they may deny the issue entirely. They'll try to convince themselves that the problem isn't theirs to own. Instead of taking responsibility, they may try to downplay their actions or completely rewrite the narrative. They might say things like, "It's not as bad as you're making it sound," or "You're overreacting." The key here is deflection. They want to redirect the focus from their mistake and put the blame on others or external circumstances. This is a defense mechanism, a way to protect their fragile ego. If they cannot deny the mistake outright, the narcissist may shift into defensiveness. In this phase, they become highly reactive to any suggestion that they've done something wrong. They might start pointing out every little mistake the other person has made, even if it's unrelated to the current issue. They could say, "Well, you've done the same thing," or "Look at how you've treated me." This is a classic manipulation tactic, turning the conversation back onto the other person in order to avoid facing the consequences of their own behavior. The next step, gaslighting and manipulation. If denial and defensiveness don't work, the narcissist might escalate their tactics to gaslighting. Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation technique where the narcissist makes the other person question their reality, memory, or perception. When a narcissist realizes they've messed up, but refuses to admit it, they might use gaslighting to make you doubt your own experiences. They might say things like, "That never happened," or "You're just imagining things," or "You're too sensitive." The goal is to confuse you to the point where you second-guess your own understanding of the situation. Gaslighting is one of the most powerful tools a narcissist has to avoid accountability because it shifts the blame onto the victim. It makes you feel crazy or irrational for even thinking that they've done something wrong. This is especially harmful in relationships where the narcissist's behavior is abusive or emotionally damaging. If the narcissist can convince you that you're the one at fault, they can continue with their manipulation without facing any consequences. But there's another layer to this process. Narcissists often believe they are justified in their behavior, no matter how hurtful or damaging it might be to others. They see themselves as the victim and will convince themselves that their actions were warranted. They'll rationalize their behavior to the point where they believe they haven't really done anything wrong. In their mind, it's you who are overreacting, or it's society's fault for not understanding them. This sense of self-righteousness makes it even harder for them to admit they've messed up, even if the evidence is glaring. Rare but possible. The apology, that isn't really an apology. In rare cases, a narcissist may recognize their mistake and try to apologize. However, it's important to understand that their apology is unlikely to be genuine. Narcissists rarely apologize because they feel genuine remorse. Instead, they might apologize because they need to maintain their image or because they want to manipulate you into forgiving them so they can continue using you for their benefit. When a narcissist apologizes, it's often a calculated move. It may sound like an apology, but it often lacks depth or sincerity. For example, instead of saying, "I'm sorry for the way I hurt you," they might say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or "I'm sorry you're upset, but I didn't mean to hurt you." Notice how these statements don't take responsibility for their actions. They only acknowledge your feelings. This is a key tactic narcissists use to avoid true accountability while still getting you to forgive them. In some cases, their apology is used as a means of future manipulation. Once they've gotten you to accept their apology, they may go back to their original behavior, knowing that you're more likely to overlook their mistakes in the future. It's a cycle of emotional manipulation that reinforces their sense of power and control over you. The emotional and psychological damage. The reality is that narcissists are often incapable of truly understanding the damage they cause. When they realize they've messed up, their focus isn't on the hurt they've inflicted on others. It's on how this mistake affects their self-image and ego. This means they can leave a trail of emotional devastation in their wake, but rarely will they acknowledge the depth of their actions. For those who are emotionally involved with a narcissist, this can be exhausting and emotionally draining. Living with a narcissist can lead to feelings of confusion, insecurity, and even self-doubt. You might start to feel like you're walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing yourself and questioning your reality. This emotional manipulation can cause lasting psychological damage, leaving you feeling like you're not enough, or like you'll never get the genuine care and empathy you need from the narcissist. The narcissist's inability to empathize with you deepens the hurt, and their refusal to take responsibility for their mistakes only adds to the pain. Moving forward, what does this mean for you? So, what do you do when a narcissist realizes they've messed up? If you're dealing with a narcissist, it's important to protect your emotional well-being. Acknowledge that their responses, denial, gaslighting, defensiveness, and insincere apologies, are part of their narcissistic behavior and not an indication that they are truly capable of change. Setting boundaries is crucial when dealing with a narcissist, especially if you want to preserve your own mental health. Don't allow them to manipulate you into thinking that their mistakes are somehow your fault, or that their false apologies mean anything. It's also important to remember that narcissists rarely change. While they might temporarily adjust their behavior, their core traits of self-centeredness, lack of empathy, and need for validation remain unchanged. The most important thing is to take care of yourself. You deserve to be in relationships where accountability, empathy, and respect are mutual. If you find yourself stuck in a cycle of manipulation with a narcissist, seek support. Therapy, self-care, and support from loved ones can help you rebuild your sense of self-worth and make healthier decisions moving forward. Thank you so much for staying with me throughout this discussion on what happens when a narcissist realizes they've messed up. I hope you've gained a better understanding of the behaviors, reactions, and tactics narcissists use to avoid accountability for their actions. The truth is, their ability to manipulate and protect their ego often prevents them from ever truly acknowledging their mistakes in a meaningful way. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you deserve relationships where your feelings are validated, your needs are met, and your boundaries are respected. Take care of yourself and stay strong. 11 Weird Signs of Narcissistic Abuse in Body Language. When you think of narcissistic abuse, what comes to mind? Perhaps the emotional manipulation, the constant belittling, or the way the narcissist twists reality to make you question your sanity. But did you know that narcissistic abuse doesn't just leave emotional scars? It can manifest in body language too. In fact, narcissistic abuse can subtly but powerfully impact how a victim carries themselves, moves, and presents their body to the world. It's a shocking truth that many of the effects of narcissistic abuse, especially the ones you might not see coming, can be hidden in the smallest gestures and postures. If you've ever been around someone who's experienced narcissistic abuse, you might have noticed these odd, almost imperceptible signs in their body language. Their hands tremble slightly when they speak, their posture becomes rigid, or their smile feels more like a mask than an expression of joy. But what's behind these odd behaviors? Why do these body language signs happen, and what do they tell us about the lasting effects of narcissistic abuse? In this video, we're going to dive deep into 11 weird signs of narcissistic abuse in body language, signs that may not be immediately obvious, but when recognized, can reveal a lot about the emotional toll of narcissistic manipulation. Whether you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, or you've observed these behaviors in someone else, this piece will provide you with valuable insights into how narcissistic abuse shows up in the body. So, if you've ever been curious about how narcissistic abuse affects a person's body language, or you're hoping to understand the subtle cues of someone who's been abused by a narcissist, stick with me. By the end of this article, you'll be able to spot these signs and, more importantly, understand how to begin healing. Let's dive in. Before we get into the specifics of narcissistic body language, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and share this video. Understanding narcissistic abuse and its hidden effects is crucial, not only for those who have experienced it firsthand, but for anyone who wants to help others who might be going through it. If you've ever noticed strange body language in someone you care about, this video will give you the tools to understand what might be happening beneath the surface. So, let's jump in and start looking at the weird signs of narcissistic abuse in body language. Signs that might be so subtle that they could easily go unnoticed unless you know exactly what to look for. 1. A constantly tense and stiff posture. One of the first signs of narcissistic abuse in body language is a tense and stiff posture. Narcissistic abuse often leaves victims in a state of hypervigilance, always on edge and anticipating the next attack or manipulation. This state of perpetual anxiety can manifest physically through body language. The person may hold their body rigidly, with their shoulders pulled up and their chest tight. Their movements may be jerky or exaggerated, as though they're constantly bracing for impact. This tension can be a direct result of chronic emotional stress. Victims of narcissistic abuse often feel like they're walking on eggshells, never knowing when the narcissist will lash out or criticize them. Over time, this constant state of alertness can lead to muscle stiffness and a posture that looks uncomfortable or unnatural. The body becomes a reflection of the mind, trying to protect itself from the invisible emotional wounds caused by narcissistic manipulation. 2. Excessive fidgeting or restlessness. Another subtle sign of narcissistic abuse is excessive fidgeting or restlessness. A victim may feel an overwhelming sense of anxiety, which manifests as the need to constantly move or shift their position. They might tap their fingers nervously, shift their weight from one foot to another, or repeatedly adjust their clothing. This behavior is often a coping mechanism, a way to deal with the internal chaos created by being constantly belittled, criticized, or invalidated by the narcissist. This fidgeting often occurs when the person feels overwhelmed, trapped in a conversation they can't escape, or under the watchful eye of someone who has a tendency to belittle them. The feeling of not being able to sit still is their body's way of trying to release pent-up tension or discomfort. It's as if their body is reacting to the stress they feel, but don't know how to release it otherwise. 3. Avoiding eye contact. Avoiding eye contact is another behavior that can be a sign of narcissistic abuse. In a healthy relationship, eye contact is a sign of trust, connection, and respect. But for someone who has been subjected to narcissistic abuse, eye contact can become a source of anxiety. They may avoid looking directly at the narcissist, either out of fear of being criticized or because they've learned that maintaining eye contact often leads to further emotional manipulation or devaluation. This behavior is often rooted in shame or fear. Narcissistic abuse can make someone feel small, insignificant, and unworthy of attention. Over time, they may develop the habit of looking down or away as a way to avoid drawing attention to themselves, as if they are afraid of being scrutinized or judged. For these victims, eye contact may feel like a power struggle they're not prepared to win. 4. Smiling that doesn't reach the eyes. One of the most haunting signs of narcissistic abuse in body language is a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. This is often referred to as a fake smile or a mask smile. When someone is enduring narcissistic abuse, they may feel forced to smile or appear happy in front of others, even though they are emotionally devastated. This smile may look perfect on the surface, but if you look closely, you'll notice it doesn't extend into the eyes. The eyes, often referred to as the window to the soul, may appear vacant or flat, signaling a disconnect between the smile and the true emotional state. Narcissistic abuse often creates this inner conflict. The victim is forced to appear happy or content, even when they feel broken on the inside. The fake smile becomes a survival tactic, a way to keep the narcissist happy or to avoid further criticism. Over time, this becomes a deeply ingrained habit, and the person may not even realize that their smile no longer reflects their true feelings. 5. Hunched shoulders and lowered head. A hunched posture or a lowered head is a classic sign of someone who has endured a significant amount of narcissistic abuse. Over time, the constant emotional battering takes its toll, and the victim may start to physically shrink in on themselves, adopting a posture that reflects feelings of inferiority, shame, or guilt. The narcissist often diminishes the victim's sense of self-worth, making them feel small or unimportant. This is reflected in their body language as they unconsciously try to make themselves invisible. Their shoulders might slouch forward, and their head may hang low, as though they're trying to avoid drawing attention or standing out. It's a physical manifestation of the emotional pain and low self-esteem caused by prolonged narcissistic abuse. 6. Covering the neck or face. People who have experienced narcissistic abuse might also exhibit the behavior of covering their neck or face during conversations. This can be an unconscious reaction to feelings of vulnerability. When someone feels emotionally exposed or unsafe, they may instinctively try to shield themselves physically. For example, a person may raise their hand to their neck, rub their throat, or hold their face in a way that blocks any potential attack from the narcissist. This physical gesture is a form of self-protection, a way to create a barrier between their vulnerable self and the emotional danger they perceive. Narcissistic abuse can make someone feel emotionally exposed, and this behavior is one way the body attempts to protect them from further harm. 7. Tightened jaw or clenched fists. Another strange but telling sign of narcissistic abuse is the presence of a tightened jaw or clenched fists. When a victim of narcissistic abuse is under emotional distress or frustration, their body may respond by tightening up, particularly in the jaw and hands. This is often a sign that the person is holding back their emotions, whether it's anger, hurt, or the desire to speak up, but feeling unable to do so. The clenching of the jaw or fists can be a direct response to emotional suppression. Narcissists are often masters at silencing their victims, making them feel that their opinions don't matter or that expressing their feelings is useless. As a result, the victim learns to suppress their emotions, which often manifests physically in the form of jaw tension or clenched fists. 8. Over-apologizing or shrinking back. Victims of narcissistic abuse may also display the body language of over-apologizing or shrinking back during interactions. They may continuously apologize for things they didn't do, even when it's not their fault, because they've been conditioned to believe that everything is their responsibility. Their body may retreat, with shoulders slumping, hands raised in a defensive manner, or eyes darting nervously. This constant apologizing and physical shrinking are a direct result of years of being made to feel inadequate by the narcissist. They've internalized the message that they are always at fault, and their body language reflects this sense of guilt and subservience. 9. Tendency to look for validation through gestures. Someone who has been subjected to narcissistic abuse may also show signs of constantly seeking validation through gestures. They may look for approval through subtle cues, like seeking eye contact or glancing at the narcissist for signs of approval. This behavior is rooted in the constant need for validation and affirmation that narcissistic abuse often imposes on its victims. This constant search for validation is a survival mechanism. In a relationship with a narcissist, the victim may feel unsure of themselves and their worth, so they look for signs that they are doing the right thing, that they're being seen or heard, even though this is a flawed and unhealthy dynamic. 10. Excessive grooming or appearance fixation. In some cases, a victim of narcissistic abuse might develop an obsession with their appearance or engage in excessive grooming. This could be a coping mechanism to gain the narcissist's approval or to deflect attention from their emotional vulnerability. They may fixate on their clothes, makeup, or hair as a way to protect themselves from further criticism or to appear perfect in the eyes of their abuser. This focus on appearance can become a way to control the narrative about their worth. By keeping their outward appearance flawless, they may feel they can gain approval or avoid further emotional harm. However, this is often a superficial solution that doesn't address the deeper emotional damage caused by narcissistic abuse. 11. Excessive pleasantries or forced compliments. Finally, victims of narcissistic abuse may exhibit excessive pleasantries or give forced compliments as a way to avoid conflict or keep the narcissist appeased. Their body language might appear overly cheerful, but this is often a defense mechanism. By overcompensating with pleasantries or compliments, they hope to avoid criticism or further emotional pain from the narcissist. These gestures are an attempt to please the narcissist and maintain some semblance of control over the situation. It's a form of submission, trying to placate the narcissist by giving them what they want. I hope this video has helped you understand some of the weird signs of narcissistic abuse in body language. Narcissistic abuse can take many forms, and its effects can be deeply ingrained, even in the way someone moves and holds themselves. If you or someone you know has experienced narcissistic abuse, recognizing these signs is an important first step in understanding the emotional toll it takes. Thank you for staying with me through this video. If you found it insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on narcissistic abuse and recovery. Remember, you are not alone and healing is possible. Take care of yourself and always trust your body's signals when it comes to protecting your emotional well-being.